Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief Headlines Edition, all the daily AI news you need in around 5 minutes. While most of the LLM war discussion recently has been around either A, the push to competition on the smaller model front, something that we've talked about recently and even have a story on today, or, of course, the question of GPT-4o versus Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Still, there are a handful of lurking competitors who it feels clear haven't really fully entered the fray, one of those, of course, being Elon Musk's X AI. Now, Grok has done some things. We're on version 1.5, version 1 was open sourced, and simply by virtue of the fact that it is an Elon project, meaning that it gets to be integrated into Twitter/X, as well as access that data, and in the fact that maybe at some point there'll be some Tesla connection, means that it would be highly inadvisable to write them off. What's more, Elon has been talking for a while about the fact that they were going to invest a huge amount in computing resources, and as of this morning, we got a little bit more information about that. At 5:57 a.m. Eastern Time, Elon tweeted, "Nice work by XAI team, Nvidia, and supporting companies getting Memphis supercluster training started at 4:20 a.m. local time. With 100,000 liquid-cooled H100s on a single RDMA fabric, it's the most powerful AI training cluster in the world. This is a significant advantage in training the world's most powerful AI by every metric by December this year." Elon has indicated previously that Grok 3 would be trained on these 100,000 H100 chips. And what's more, there's been a flow of a number of Tesla employees over to XAI, so much that some in the Tesla community have even accused Elon of poaching from himself. This supercluster was a big part of what Elon was fundraising for, that was originally going to be $3 billion raised on a $21 billion valuation, but ballooned at the last minute to $6 billion on 24. Reports are that between half and two-thirds of that will go to simply buying compute. I think for us, one takeaway is that we now have Elon throwing down a clear gauntlet. He wants to have the world's most powerful AI by every metric by December this year. Next up, speaking of Nvidia, one of the few headwinds facing that company has been US AI chip export restrictions. Throughout the last couple of years, the Biden administration has continuously tightened those rules, forcing companies that sell chips to China to frequently update their offerings to come in under various power thresholds. Still, it seems for now the calculus is that rather than abandoning the Chinese market, it makes more sense to try to customize offerings to be as close to the state-of-the-art as possible within those restrictions, with the latest efforts from Nvidia coming in a chip they're calling the B20. This is part of the Blackwell chip line that was announced in March, which is slated to go into production later this year. The information writes, "It's unclear how Nvidia designs the B20 to align with US rules while keeping competitive in China," basically referring to the fact that as these restrictions take hold, more and more of the Chinese market is moving to local alternatives where they can. Back to small model competition, Apple has recently shared a new small model that outperforms Mistral. VentureBeat points out that Apple has released a package of 2 models in the DCLM, or Data Comp for Language Models project, on Hugging Face, one with 7 billion parameters and the other with 1.4 billion. VentureBeat writes they both performed pretty well on the benchmarks, especially the bigger one, which has outperformed Mistral 7B and is closing in on other leading open models, including Llama 3 and Gemma. Vaishal Shankar from Apple writes, "We have released our DCLM models on Hugging Face. To our knowledge, these are by far the best performing truly open source models. Open data, open weight models, open training code. Our 6.9 billion base model is competitive with Mistral, Llama 3, Gemma, Qwen 2 on most benchmarks, but we also release our entire training set and pre-training recipe for the community to build on top of. We also have a strong 1.4B version, which significantly outperforms recently released SOTA small LM models. We additionally release an instruction-tuned variant of these models that exhibit strong performance on IT benchmarks like Alpaca Bench." As we pointed out last week, the competition for small model terrain is just as vicious and intense in many ways as the competition for AGI in the state of the art. Speaking of Apple and competition, AMD recently has been talking a big game. The Verge writes, AMD says its new laptop chips can beat Apple, but still has to prove it. The Verge writes, 2024 will go down in tech history as the year Microsoft was finally able to make Windows laptops into serious competitors to the MacBook. So far, that's thanks to Qualcomm's new Snapdragon chips, which switched to a homogeneous chip architecture, increased clock speeds, and caught up to Apple's speedy and power-efficient processors. But now, AMD says it has chips that can take on the MacBook too, and keep the company's processors in the mix. In fact, at a recent event, one of the Verge authors writes, "I heard AMD brag about beating the MacBook more than I've ever heard a company directly target a competitor before." The general vibe of the piece, however, is prove it. For now, lots of interesting competition to start the week. But that's going to do it for the AI Daily Brief Headlines edition. Up next, the main episode.